All right, in this video, we are going to talk about effects and adding effects and adjusting effects to your footage. Premiere has over 100 effects that you can use for your video, and that's what we're going to get in here today. We're going to jump into more in depth about those effects and what those effects do for your footage, how to use them, and how to adjust their settings. So let's jump in. There are effect type icons that you will see next to the effect. There's accelerated effects. This effect indicates that the effect can be accelerated by your graphics unit and can greatly enhance the performance of Premiere Pro. There is 32-bit color high depth effects. Effects with the 32-bit color icon can be processed in 32 bits. So for maximum quality, if you want that, you're going to use these kind of effects on there also. And then you're going to see YUV, that little button there. Those effects with this icon use Premiere Pro's color table to process the color instead of your computer, the RGB base, red, green, blue base instead. If you remember in the earlier lessons, I went ahead and I went up here to Window and I selected Effects, and then I pulled Effects up into the top right here where I like it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Effects there. You can see all the effects that they have to offer. Like I said, and I told you to set up your custom bins. If you did that, you can go ahead and go into your custom bins. I usually only use cross dissolve or like a zoom in effect, something like that to transition. But typically, instead of using the pre-made Premiere effects, I just do my own zoom in effects with an adjustment layer. So if you want to go into those effects, you want to click this drop down menu, and then you look for the one that you're looking for. What I'm going to do is what I'm going to do here is I went ahead and I drug the timeline playhead to the end of my video. I'm going to go in and I'm going to select a dip to black. Remember, you can either drag this onto the clip like so, or you can just double click it. If you have just that top track selected where you want it to go and you double click it, it will add it to that clip as long as you can do it that way. This one's not working for me, so I'm just going to drag it on. I will zoom in on it so I can see it. Remember, if you need to brush up on this, go back to the lesson about effects and check it out. I'm going to click on it and drag it longer. So once we put an effect onto a clip, you can see what it looks like with and without the effects by clicking on the effects button next to the name and effects controls panel. I'm going to show you how to add a blur effect to two clips. Let's say we were going to blur from this clip on the left to the clip on the right. I'm going to show you a different way to do that. First things first, I need to get my project panel. I have moved it up to the top right, so I'm going to drag it back to the bottom left. Just one, so you guys can see how to drag it back to the bottom left, and two, because it's automatically set up at this like this in the default, so I want you to see the same thing. I'm going to go to New Item, and I'm going to add an adjustment layer. I'm going to click on Adjustment Layer. It's going to ask me about the settings. Do I want those settings? I'm just going to click OK. The adjustment layer is not added yet. It just puts it in the project panel for you. You're going to drag that on and you're going to drag it over that space there where the clip is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press down to get that locked in on that cut there. Down if you're before it, or up arrow if you're past it. It's going to go to that clip. I'm going to arrow to the right 5 frames. So I'm going to press it 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to click on the adjustment layer and shorten it, or you can cut and delete it. And then I'm going to press the up arrow again to go back to the cut. And then I'm going to go and do the same thing to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to slide it over. Now I have that. There's a few different blurs that you can put on. One, we'll just type it in here to the effects menu. I'm going to go over to effects. I'm going to type in blur. I like to use Gaussian blur unless we're moving left to right or right to left, up and down, things like that. and I'm going to drag Gaussian blur onto the adjustment layer. Now, when you drag a blur onto either a track or an adjustment layer or anything like that, it doesn't automatically blur your footage. You have to go over here to the Effect Controls panel, and you can see where the blurriness is at 0. So right now, I'm in the middle of that adjustment layer. You can see it here. Remember, we did 5 frames on either side. So I want the height of the blurriness to be right in the middle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in, we'll type in 15. And I'm going to hit enter. And now what I'm going to do, you can see that my footage is now blurry in the program monitor. I'm going to go over to blurriness, and we're going to create a keyframe by hitting that toggle animation. So now that is 10. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it to the beginning, and I'm going to reset parameters so that it goes to 0 and puts a keyframe there. And then I'm going to drag it to the end of that adjustment layer, 5 frames, and I'm going to again reset the parameters to 0 there as well. So now I have, it starts at 0 and it goes up to 15 and it ends at 0. So this is how it looks when you play it back. You can see it gets blurry and then not blurry. What I'm doing is I am adding an adjustment layer. That way I'm not adding anything to the footage that I shot. If I add blurriness to the footage that I shot, I'm adding an effect to that clip. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to add an adjustment layer and do it through that. It makes sense if you're going left or right or up and down. This is a very straight on shot. It's a talking head here, so it's not going to be as effective. But if you're doing like a directional blur, you can change the settings on the direction as well. So let me show you that. I'll click back on that adjustment layer. Make sure, again, the timeline playhead is over your adjustment layer. We're going to click on Gaussian blur. I'm going to delete that one off. And then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to do directional blur. And then I want to show you what the options are here in the Effect Controls panel. You can see direction. So depending on what you're looking at, you can do 90 or 180 or negative 90, etc., right? And then blur length is like how long the blur lasts for. And then you would do the keyframes the same way, depending on whether you're going up and down, left and right, and that kind of thing. It works out very well. It's good for seamless transitions and things like that. I'm not going to get into them in this course. It's just a basic course, and I'm trying to show you how to manage the effects and play around with them. I hope you got something out of this video. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will see you in the next one.